Hello and welcome to the final day of my travels. So this is going to be sort of an amalgamation of day 14 and 15 because day 14 was a trip at sea, which didn't really seem record worthy, although we did see Pharaoh's Island, which was neat to see. Apparently the building constructed on it was constructed by the Crusaders in the 12th century, and then after that he was kicked out by the Ottoman Empire, and they built a little more on that, and that was pretty much all we heard about that. And other than that day, we just relaxed all day. And at night we had a captain's party, and there was champagne and wine and fancy things like that. Like the hors d'oeuvres. Ooh, look at these hors d'oeuvres. Other than that, not too exciting. So, on to day 15 at Luxor. We were all sad to find out that the day was going to consist of a lot of driving. Originally we thought it was just going to be about 6 hours, but it ended up being about 10 hours, maybe a little more than that, on account of change of speed limit and crappy bus. So, sadness, but at the same time we did get to see Luxor, which was cool. At our first rest stop, there was, time to buy things, go to the washroom, but there was also this group of people, and they had goats, like baby goats, kids, children, and donkeys and camels and baby camels, and they were posing for photos for money. And it was so sad. Again, it makes me feel so lucky to have the life that I have and to have been born where I was born. It was so sad, but look at how sweet they look, so I had to take some pictures and give them some money. Then we continued on, and it was interesting to see the landscape go from very sandy and rocky and mountainous to this lush area where they planted crops. The closer we got to the Nile, the more lush it seemed to get, and there were palm trees everywhere and donkeys that were pulling things that had just come from the field, and we saw the tiniest little car that I've ever seen. It reminded me of the cars in China, so I found that funny. After we crossed the Nile, it suddenly turned back to this desert, and we weaved our way in, and we finally got to the tourist stop to go to the Valley of the Kings. However, you weren't allowed to bring your camera with you. You weren't even allowed to bring it off the bus, essentially. There was no point because they'd hold it for you there. So unfortunately there are no photos, but I'll try to find some for you, and if not, hopefully my descriptions will be accurate enough. So you get off the bus and you head to the main tourist area, and in there is a possibly plexiglass model. It's sort of clear, and it shows all the mountains exactly how they are, or the hills in the area, and then it shows each of the entry points of the tombs they've discovered thus far, and then the tombs that they've excavated, they have underneath them these little clear things that show exactly how big the tomb is, what it looks like, the halls that it contains. Then you head outside and you hop on these little trolleys, and then they take you up to the top, and there's these irritating salesmen that I've never had the urge to kick a human being off something moving before. They were all in your face, five, lady, five, look, why don't you look, $5, and I just wanted to be whoa! We've been on the bus for 5 hours, and then this guy's pushing us, and then it's hot, and then we're on a trolley, and we're not allowed to take our cameras, and Catherine was angry. She was not a happy girl. But she was in the Valley of the Kings, and that was cool. Anyways, we got up to the top, and our ticket was good for visiting 3 tombs, so our tour guide picked the ones that he thought would be best. The first tomb that we went into was Ramses the Ninth. It started as a huge hallway that slowly got smaller and smaller. There was lots of writing and pictures all along those walls, and then you got to a pillar room with 4 large pillars, and then a steep incline, which brought you down to the tomb room. And it was beautifully painted, although apparently this king had died suddenly, and so instead of smoothing it all out and making the room, symmetrical and beautiful, it was all still rocky, but they just quickly painted over it anyways. And you could see all the characteristic things of a tomb room, the writings on the wall, the solar boats, Ra, the king, seeing the gods, and that goddess on top that births the sun each day and swallows it each night, with all the stars all over there. So that was very pretty. All the colors are amazing. The whitewash with the vivid colors on them are just so eye-catching. The next tomb we went to was Ramses III, and in front of his is a huge opening with this huge thing on top that has the disc and then some gods, and it's just bright vibrant colors, like a bright yellow and bright red. Their vivid colors are amazing, and they're all tempera paints. Apparently they're all made with egg whites, and that's why they've lasted so long. That's what I hear. That's why we're still able to enjoy them even today. as you walk in, you see a huge version of Ramses on the wall, and he's wearing his lion or leopard pelt, as he always does, and his war hat or helmet or crown. And you walk down this huge hallway that has stars on top of it, and it's, oh, they're so pretty. I love the stars here. And along the way, there's about 5 rooms on each side, and each of them are elaborately painted as well, and each of them have a theme. So one theme will be animals and plants, one theme will be pottery, one theme seemed to be like water or boats, one was instruments. There were harps drawn inside of it, so maybe that's a hint as to what was kept in those rooms. Or maybe it was just those rooms were there, and then, you know, the magic in the underworld would allow those things to be real once he was reborn there. Then there's another room, and again with many names and pictures on it as well. And then there's another hallway that you go down, and each hallway is just so beautifully decorated with so many different colors, and, you know, everything's very mathematically done. You know, everything's in boxes, or everything, you know, is perfect. And again, the detail in them is just amazing. On Ramses, the pelt that he's wearing, like the leopard print, you can see all, like, each and every single little dot that's on there has, you know, these 2 endpoints, a dot in the middle, and then white, and then the background's all yellow, and there'd be, you know, like 1,000 all over his entire skin. So it was really, really amazing to see up close. I mean, you don't really get the feeling of that when you just see pictures of it, you know, from other people or online or at museums, what have you. Then you get to that other long hallway, and then the stars on top are now, it's a black with the kind of goldy stars, whereas the room before was blue with the stars. So it's like it's getting darker, it's getting closer to nighttime. And then again, beautiful, almost life-size figures on the sides. And there's many pictures of the solar boats, there's snakes, there's scarabs. Then there's another room, but then there's that pillar room. And this time all the pillars are beautifully decorated with hieroglyphics everywhere, all the walls, the pillars, everything gorgeous. So the other room was just, you know, like plain rock color. But this one, you saw that they had time. This king had obviously lived quite some time to be able to have it so well decorated. Then you get to the bottom of that steep staircase after the pillar room again, and this time it appears that they had done all this work before, but then, you know, the king had died, and all they'd had time to do was carve out all these little rooms. And I guess each room would be full of treasures, and they were about 6 deep. You know, it was just a room, and then a room, and then a room, each getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And then I assume at the end, his body would have been kept. So you didn't get to see the beautiful drawings like you saw in the one before, but the ones before that definitely made up for it on your way to the tomb room. Also, they did such a great job of showing things that, you know, just upon thinking about it, you'd think showing that in stone and paint would be difficult, like impossible, if not difficult. Like, for instance, showing a sheer fabric. They would do like a thin outline to kind of show that there's something there. Or they do almost like a whitewash, but it would be striped slightly so it looked like you could see that the wind was blowing through his skirt. Septa, I hope I'm saying it right, and probably not, was the last king or tomb that we visited. And he was the last king of the New Kingdom. The roof, when you entered his, was vivid. It was blues and blacks and reds, just with accents of yellow. And it was just, oh, like they'd put tons of coats on it or something. It was wonderful. And then again, all the drawings and writings along the side as you walked in. And this time, after you get through that hallway, you hit the pillar room, and there's only 1 pillar. So I don't know whether an excavation, you know, the other 4 pillars accidentally were broken, or whether they just didn't last. And this room, you can see they barely had time to even make it a square, let alone to get all the pillars, you know, shaven down, or to do hieroglyphics or any kind of painting. Then you go down, and then you go through a hallway that has a series of arches. And again, you see that they just quickly, roughly did it and didn't get around to sanding it, because again, this king must have died sooner than they were hoping or anticipating. Then you get to the last room, and it's huge. It must be, I don't know, 15 meters by 12 meters. Very tall as well. Not as tall as the archways though. And then there's a huge granite sarcophagus in it. And it has the king on top of it with possibly Isis holding him there. You can just sort of see her hands holding. And it was neat to actually see a sarcophagus in the tomb, so you would have sort of had a feeling of what it would have been like to discover it originally.